Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today we are doing a special emergency broadcast. I am your host, Matt Morris TV. We are live right now on Rumble, Matt Morris TV, and YouTube, Matt Morris TV. Please make sure to like and subscribe today's show. Folks, things are starting to get a little bit concerning over in Eastern Europe, and as things currently stand, it would seem as if the United States of America is on the cusp, is on the precipice of getting pulled into a direct kinetic conflict with Russia. And no, I am not kidding. I'm also not being hyperbolic. I'm not being exaggeratory. To say the least, it has been a very eventful 24 hours. This last 24 hours, we have a lot to talk about today. I hope I am wrong, but it has been a very concerning and eventful 24 hours. That much cannot be denied. We have a lot to talk about today, so please tune into today's entire broadcast. I want you all to hear every single thing that has gone on. Like I said, things are starting to get a little bit concerning. I'm just going to cut the intro. Let's get right into this. We have a lot to talk about today, folks. Thank you for being here. Earlier today, we got some breaking news. Like I said, there's a lot to hear today, a lot to talk about today. Please bear with me now, folks. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ordered a rare, urgent gathering of nearly all generals and admirals in the United States Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, and Space Force next week at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia for a currently unknown reason, according to the Washington Post. This is effectively unprecedented. All of these top senior-ranking members of the United States military are being pulled back to the U.S., to Virginia, from wherever they were all over the world. An emergency meeting with not the Department of Defense, the Department of War. Pete Hegseth has summoned hundreds of generals and admirals for an urgent meeting. The senior Pentagon correspondent has said, I've never seen, this is a correspondent from the Pentagon, I've never seen anything like this in the past 30 years. We might be going to war, says the Pentagon correspondent. The U.S. Secretary of War has summoned nearly 800 generals and admirals worldwide for a very mysterious meeting. The topic remains undisclosed even to the chiefs of staff. Military sources told the Washington Post they can't recall the Pentagon had ever ordering such a large gathering of generals and admirals in this format ever. The meeting is set for September 30th at Marine Corps Base in Virginia. That is 5 days from now. There's a YouTuber, his name is The Enforcer. His specialty is talking about this type of news, this type of content, really relating to specifically what is going on in Eastern Europe, Ukraine versus Russia. This guy is dialed in. He had to say earlier today, I think the Pentagon is gathering the top U.S. military leadership because we are about to go to war with Russia. People should prepare for this possibility. Folks, there was a bombshell development just hours ago at the United Nations, which is gathered currently in New York City, USA. For those of you that are saying clickbait, like I said, stand by. Listen to the entire show today. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated today at the UN General Assembly in New York City that NATO and the EU have effectively declared war on Russia by providing military aid, training, and sanctions to Russia. As far as Russia is concerned, they are at war with NATO and the European Union. This is breaking news hot off of the press today. This is from the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, today. This is a deviation from the official Russian stance. This has now changed today. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte dismissed the accusation in a Fox News interview a couple hours ago, questioning Lavrov's credibility and reaffirming the alliance's defensive role. So the NATO Secretary General, he says NATO is defensive, Russia is being ridiculous. The remarks come amid Russian drone incursions into various NATO member states like Poland and Romania. Now, folks, I did some research into this here. In the last 3 weeks, we have seen Russian drone activity in eastern Poland, Lithuania, Romania, Estonia, Norway, and now Denmark. Today, everybody is talking about these drones, these mysterious drones in Denmark. It's been shutting down all of these Danish airports. Their air traffic has been grounded numerous times over the last 24 hours. Mysterious drones. Mysterious. However, we know there have been Russian drones all over Europe over the last couple weeks, Norway included, which is really far out there. Let's keep on going here. Let's talk about those drones. Denmark, this is just hours ago. This one is hot off the press. Denmark has announced that Aalborg Air Base of the Danish Air Force and Aalborg Airport have both just been closed after new drone incursions by unknown drones. So they've been having so every single one of these red circles here with another red circle around it is unidentified drone activity in Denmark here. Boom, 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 boom. All over the place. 5 different recorded locations in the last 24 hours. And to be fair to Russia here, these drones in Denmark are, as of now, unidentified. I don't want to spread any misinformation here. I would guess they're probably Russian, given there's been Russian drones everywhere else for the last 3 weeks. But these ones we don't know for a fact. But this is breaking news, hot off the press today. Moving on. Passenger jet flying from Amsterdam to Aalborg forced to turn back to the airport, and the Aalborg military base are forced to close down following new drone incursions moments ago. It's the 3rd time that this has happened in Denmark in the past 3 days. So airplanes are going, turn around, shut it down, ground them down. Europeans had a private conversation with Russia a couple days ago, and I want to read through this report. This is going to put a lot of this into context for you guys. Like I said, pay attention here. This one is pretty wild. Europeans privately tell Russia they're ready to shoot down Russian jets. This article is posted earlier today, about 5 hours ago. European diplomats warned the Kremlin this week that NATO is ready to respond to further violations of its airspace with full force, including by shooting down Russian planes, according to officials familiar with the exchange. At a tense meeting in Moscow, British, French, and German envoys addressed their concerns about an incursion by the 3 MiG-31 fighter jets over Estonia last week. So it's not just Russian drones that are all over Eastern Europe at this point, and also over Norway. The ones over Denmark, we don't know for sure are Russian. But it's also Russian fighter jets over Estonia a week ago, violating NATO airspace. According to the officials who spoke on condition of anonymity, as the talks took place behind closed doors. Following the conversation, they concluded that the violation had been a deliberate tactic ordered by the Russian commanders. Russian officials have denied that their planes crossed into Estonian airspace and insisted that they are not trying to test NATO. They said that a separate incident when drones crossed into Poland was the result of an error. That was like 2 weeks ago. And it was numerous drones. We actually reported that live on the night that happened. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said this week that Russian military flights are guided by international rules. Okay, so Russia is denying the fighter jets are invading Estonian NATO airspace. The Europeans are solid in their belief that the Russian jets are violating the airspace. I will make a request. Please do not spam the chat. Please keep things civil and respectful here. I appreciate that. NATO's eastern members have faced a series of violations this month that have posed an unprecedented test of the alliance's resolve. At a moment when Vladimir Putin is stepping up Russian attacks on Ukraine's civilian infrastructure and U.S. backing for Kiev has been wavering, meaning the U.S. has been backing Ukraine a little bit less now that Trump is back in the White House. President Donald Trump this week urged Ukraine to win back all of its territory captured by Russia with the support of the European Union and defined the U.S. role as selling weapons that allies could ship to the battlefield. Now, over the last 9 months that Trump has been back in the White House, we have seen the Trump stance on the war in Ukraine kind of swing back and forth a couple times. It has almost seemed from an outside point of view that Trump at certain times has viewed Zelensky as being the belligerent actor, meaning that Zelensky is not doing everything he can to end the war. He's not willing to compromise. And then at other times, Trump has seemed like he's very upset at Putin and he's made the allegation that Putin is the belligerent actor and that Putin is not willing to compromise. In fact, we've seen instances where he's mad at both of them and he's saying both of them have been belligerent. And so, as it would seem right now, Trump is, this is my outside observation, more upset with Russia than Ukraine. Trump has vowed with NATO to start selling a bunch of weapons to NATO that then NATO will give to Ukraine. And he has also, as the article says, he has instructed Ukraine to start taking back all of the territory that Russia has taken from them. We have a map here of Russian violations of NATO airspace in September, just in the last 3 weeks or so. So all of the blue nations are NATO member nations, and the pink nations are NATO member nations that have reported a Russian incursion. Okay, so Poland, Romania, Estonia. I'm good with my country names here. The account of the, listen, at the bottom of this article, for those of you that are still in the live chat saying clickbait, clickbait, can you guys simmer down? Let me get through this. The account of the meeting in Moscow shows that Putin has been given a more forceful warning about the volley of jets and drones into the skies over Eastern Europe and offers an insight into the brinksmanship between the two sides. This is the bombshell of this article here. During the talks, a Russian diplomat told the Europeans that the incursions were a response to Ukrainian attacks on Crimea. So Russia isn't denying the incursions into NATO airspace. They're saying, actually, we are doing it, but it's only because Ukraine has been attacking Crimea. The Kremlin said those operations into Crimea would not have been possible without NATO support, and as a result, Russia considers that it is already engaged in a confrontation with the European NATO member nations. And this goes back to what Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, explicitly said this morning on video. There's a video of him saying it right here. I'm not going to play this for you guys. As far as Russia is concerned, once again, they said this morning, they view themselves at war with NATO, of which we are a member. And now Trump weighed in on this a little bit as well today, and we're going to talk about that here pretty soon. Russia views themselves at war with NATO right now. A German government official confirmed that a meeting took place and that the ambassadors told Moscow that the incursions had to stop. Chancellor Friedrich Merz of Germany said Thursday that he's coordinating with Paris, London, and Warsaw and supports all measures necessary to stop these Russian incursions. Meaning, we're going to start shooting these drones and Russian fighter jets out of the air if you don't stop. If you don't stop, we're going to blow them out of the sky. United Kingdom and French spokespeople weren't immediately able to comment on the meeting. President Emmanuel Macron of France declined to specify how NATO would respond to further incursions in an interview on France 24 Wednesday, yesterday afternoon. The North Atlantic Treaty the NATO, Article 4, which triggers consultations over a perceived threat, has only been invoked 9 times since the alliance was founded in 1949. Now, folks, we were talking about these mysterious drones over Denmark. I'll pull up the map here. Denmark has now, they've publicly said that they are on the cusp of invoking NATO Article 4. What is NATO Article 4? This allows a NATO member nation to request a consultation, a discussion, an investigation with all of the other NATO member nations whenever they believe that their territorial integrity has been violated. Denmark is saying, hey, listen, our territory has been violated. We are a part of NATO. We want a full investigation into this. We want to call all the other NATO member nations to the table and figure out what the hell is going on here. So this is a collective NATO investigation into what is going on. Denmark said earlier today they're going to do this. They're on the cusp of invoking Article 4. Now, Article 4 is the investigation stage. What comes after Article 4? Article 5. Article 5 is the collective defense agreement of NATO that says, listen, if one NATO member nation has been attacked or if their territory has been violated, then that is a violation or an attack on all of the NATO member nations. Of course, once again, by the way, America, the United States, is a member of NATO. So Denmark is saying, listen, this is a problem. We're not going to tolerate this. We want an investigation into this. And then I guess supposing on whatever the investigation yields, then that might be Article 5 of NATO, which is the collective defense agreement. Let's keep on reading here. Okay, so where we left off was Article 4 has been invoked 9 times since the alliance was founded in 1949. And 2 of those instances were this month, in the last 3 weeks, following the incursions into Poland and Estonia. So Article 4 has already been invoked. This investigation has already been invoked by Poland and Estonia in the last couple weeks. And yeah, it was Russian. Authorities in Denmark on Wednesday said they may do the same thing as they probe a potential Russian role in drone attacks that have now disrupted Danish air traffic, although the Kremlin has once again denied involvement. Now, I'm going to quickly give you my opinion, whatever that's worth. Seems to me like Russia is kind of probing and testing to see what is the NATO response time. How does NATO respond if we have drones or fighter jets flying over Estonia or drones flying over Denmark or over Poland? What is their response time? Where does their response come from geographically? What do they do? How do they respond? That's my guess as to kind of what's going on here, because it does seem like a lot of weird stuff has been going on in the last 3 weeks. The intention is to create division and to make us scared, Justice Minister Peter Hummelgaard told reporters Thursday. The threat from hybrid attacks is here to stay. The sudden uptick aligns with the view from some security officials that a belligerent move from Moscow, whose war on Ukraine is well into its 4th year, would likely not come in the form of a conventional attack against the West, but rather a hybrid operation with deliberate ambiguity about its origins and its motivations. Asymmetric. He said, Russia is testing us, testing our preparedness, testing our commitment to retaliate. Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda said in an interview Monday in New York on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly. He said, I think it's very important to show the solidarity and even more important, fast reaction. Still, the question marks over the Kremlin's intentions pose a dilemma for European officials who are wary of anything that could trigger an escalation on the tensions with Moscow and make it harder for them to maintain unity. Trump has now backed NATO leaders, including Poland's Donald Tusk, who have made robust calls for shooting down Russian jets, while German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said NATO allies risk sleepwalking into Putin's escalation trap if they fire at Russian aircraft. Trump, yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, correct me if I'm wrong, he was in the Oval Office. He was asked the question by the media press, by the media corps. The question was, Trump, there has been Russian fighter jet and drone activity over Eastern Europe. What would you tell them to do? Trump, this is on video, I'm not making this up. Trump, yesterday or 2 days ago, he said they should shoot him down. Shoot him down. Trump said that yesterday or the day before. He said, if Russia is flying over your airspace, Eastern European NATO member nations, just shoot him down. Blow him up. That's what Trump said explicitly. However, the concern is that that is part of the escalation, part of the desired escalation from Russia. If NATO shoots down a Russian plane under the pretext of an alleged violation of airspace, this will be war, said Russian Ambassador Alexei Meshkov. He said that on Thursday during a broadcast on the French radio station RTL. Other NATO leaders, including Italy's Giorgia Meloni, have also urged caution, warning allies, in effect, not to take the Kremlin's bait, though Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof said he would support bringing down a plane. So some of the NATO member countries over in Europe are like, hold up, listen, we should not shoot down Russian drones or Russian fighter jets. It's a trap. Don't take the bait. This is what Russia wants. They want a pretense or an excuse to escalate this situation. Donald Trump and some of the other European NATO members are saying, blow them up, shoot them down. That's our airspace. That's NATO airspace. Shoot them down. They're not allowed to be there. Blow them out of the sky. So a little bit divided here amongst the various NATO leaders. And then, of course, Russia is saying, if they're just being explicit, if you shoot down any of our aircraft over your airspace, that will be an escalation. And then, of course, also Russia said just 5 hours ago at the United Nations of all places that as far as they are concerned, they are already at war with NATO. They were explicitly clear about that. The Russian foreign minister said that. He's on video here saying it. That was 5 hours ago. Russia is at war with NATO. That's what they said. That's not my speculation. Now, there's another crazy thing happening today. This article was posted earlier this morning. U.S. fighter jets were scrambled to intercept Russian warplanes near Alaska. That happened this morning. U.S. fighter jets were scrambled Wednesday morning to identify and intercept 4 Russian warplanes near Alaska, the North American Aerospace Defense Command said in an official statement. That's NORAD. NORAD said 2 Russian Tu-95 long-range strategic bombers and 2 Su-35 fighter jets were flying in the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone called ADIZ, which is international airspace that abuts U.S. and Canadian sovereign airspace, so right off of the border. NORAD responded Wednesday by sending an E-3 early warning and control aircraft along with 4 F-16s and 4 KC-135 tanker planes to positively identify and intercept the Russian aircraft. NORAD said Russian military activity in the ADIZ is common and is not generally considered a threat, but it was the latest in a series of flights by Russian aircraft seen by many as testing the preparedness of U.S. and allied NATO nations. So this is sort of compounded with what is going on in Europe. That's why we're talking about this. You have this going off of the coast of Alaska, testing what is the response time. And then also you have all of this activity in Europe now, maybe kind of probing, Russia is probing what is the response time. It came as officials in Denmark continued investigating still unattributed large drones that flew close to Copenhagen Airport on Tuesday and Wednesday, disrupting traffic. Danish police have said the drones were operated by a, quote, capable actor. Once again, these drones over Denmark are unidentified. Some people are saying maybe they're aliens. Could be, I don't know. Or they could be Russian, or who knows. European nations have been on high alert amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Russian drones were shot down by Polish and allied NATO warplanes after crossing into Polish airspace on September 9th. We were covering that live a couple weeks ago. We saw that live that evening. 10 days later, Estonia said several Russian fighter jets entered its airspace. The Russian planes entered the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone on Wednesday about 1 month after a very similar incident, which also saw the U.S. scramble fighter jets for an interception. In late August, NORAD said it had detected and surveilled a Russian military reconnaissance aircraft inside of the ADIZ, this Alaskan Air Defense Zone, after intercepting the same type of spy plane over the region three times in the preceding days. On September 2024, a while ago, about a year ago, NORAD posted a dramatic video of a Russian jet flying within just a few feet of NORAD aircraft off the coast of Alaska. I remember we saw that video. That was pretty wild. At the time, a U.S. general said the conduct of the jet's crew was unsafe, unprofessional, and endangered everyone. The ADIZ, this Alaskan Air Defense Zone, is a, quote, defined stretch of international airspace that requires the ready identification of all aircraft in the interest of national security. So, a little bit of a comprehensive recap here. This is my admittedly not expert opinion. I can relay the news for you guys. We're talking about the facts here. This is my opinion. Like I said earlier, it does seem to be that Russia is kind of probing. They're testing what is the response time and the preparedness of various European NATO member nations. Seems to be the case. In fact, we had one Danish defense official say the exact same thing. Seems like Russia is testing our preparedness off of the coast of Alaska. Seems to be the case. Seems like they do that regularly. And then, once again, I'm going to say this again. For everybody in the chat that for some reason is still saying clickbait, 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 today, 4 or 5 hours ago, literally the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, he announced at the United Nations that Russia is at war with NATO. U.S. is a part of NATO. So is it fair to say that that President Trump is preparing or considering what to do in the event of a war with Russia? Completely and totally, that is a fair thing to say. Now, President Trump earlier today weighed in on some of this here. He gave his opinion on the current state of the war in Ukraine. Take a look at this.
Their economy is going to hell. They're bombing the hell out of everything, and they're picking up a very little territory, if any. In fact, they're losing some territory. So I think it's been very bad for the reputation of Russia. This war should have been over. If this were our war, we would have had it over in 1 week.
Probably true. And you know what? Maybe that's the way things are leaning right now. I think it is fair to say President Trump has done every single thing he can do to try to de-escalate the situation with Russia. He has met with Zelensky, God knows how many times, in person and private phone calls. He has personally met with Putin, as you all know, about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. He's also had God knows how many phone calls with Putin. This is not President Trump's war to solve in the first place. Keep that in mind. President Trump was not in office when this war broke out. He has taken it upon himself to try to end the war. We're over here in America. They are over there in Europe. It's halfway across the world. President Trump, out of the goodness of his own heart and recognizing the power and influence of his position as the president of the United States and the leader of the free world, he has taken it upon himself to try to solve this problem through peace and negotiations to try to get everybody to de-escalate here. Seems like that is just not happening. For better or for worse, I think worse. I wish the situation would de-escalate. Seems like things are not going that way. And so, as it would seem, once again, my outside inference here, it seems as if President Trump is now, rather than trying to sort of de-escalate the situation through peace talks, which he has tried extensively at this point, he's been doing that for 9 months. Now it seems as if President Trump is just making deals with NATO. NATO, all right, you're going to buy a bunch of American weapons. We're going to make money off of this. And the weapons you guys are going to give them to Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to start really trying to take a bite out of Russia. Or let me rephrase that, trying to take their territory back that Russia had taken, I suppose, is where we are now. Reciprocally, it would seem as if Russia is now, things have escalated. It would seem as if Russia is now trying to do some probing across Europe and maybe off of the coast of Alaska. It would seem as if things are escalating. I hate that that is the case. The title is Trump is preparing for a war with Russia. I hope we do not have a war with Russia. I think we all agree. I hope we do not have a war with Russia. I'll say this. If Trump was not preparing for a war with Russia, he would be an idiot. Can we agree? If Trump does not have some plan, some contingency plans here, if there is a war with Russia, if Trump is not actively preparing for a war with Russia, he would be the biggest moron in the world. And he's not a moron. Most certainly he is. Of course he is preparing. Of course they are drafting up plans. We talked earlier on today in the show. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has just summoned every single senior ranking member of the United States military from all over the world back to the United States of America, to this Marine Corps base in Virginia. They're having a talk. I wonder what they're talking about. We don't know exactly what they're talking about, but given the circumstances right here, it's like I've said, it's been a very eventful 24 hours. I think you can kind of speculate. Folks, that's going to be a wrap for the news today. I wanted to go live. This is an emergency broadcast. Things are getting very, very tense. I wanted to lay all of the information down for you folks in the most concise, clear, and articulate way as I possibly can. I hope I have done that. I hope I have done a good service in that goal. Take a look at some super chats here. This is from IE360. While I was hiding under my desk from Cuba, my old man was watching the Ruskies from Murphy Dome, Alaska. Thank you for that super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Rudy says, I'm not convinced Russia is the bad guy. When the United Nations and Democrats support the war against Russia, Lavrov seems very down to earth as well. I'm not even giving, like, in the past, we have talked about the series of events that have led us to this situation. Today, with today's broadcast, that's actually not really the aim of my show today. We've talked about that a lot. I have told you guys my opinion about how we have gotten here, mistakes that we have made, mistakes that NATO have made, mistakes that Russia has made. A lot of people saw this situation coming for a very long time, since the early 90s, since the mid 90s. One of them is one of my favorite politicians, Pat Buchanan, has been predicting this entire situation since the mid 90s. And you know what? He ended up being proven entirely right. But that's not the point of today's broadcast. The point of today's broadcast is to talk about what is going on today. What has happened in the last 24 hours? What has led to what's going on today? Where are we now? What might be on the near immediate horizon? And so that was the objective of today. So I want to say thank you all very much for tuning into today's show. This was an emergency broadcast. We are live right now on Rumble, Matt Morris TV, on YouTube, Matt Morris TV. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I think all of us, if you're the type of person that likes to pray, do a little bit of praying tonight. Pray that we can walk this situation back from the ledge, that we can de-escalate away from all of this, away from an all-out war with Russia. Nobody wants that. We do not want that. Everybody, if you like to pray, I will implore you to pray tonight. But beyond that, I guess we're just along for the ride. Thank you all very much for tuning in today. I really, sincerely, and genuinely appreciate it. This was a little bit more of a serious broadcast, but we're living in serious times. Thank you all, everybody. Have a great night. Have a great evening. Have a great morning tomorrow, and we will be back with more news coverage tomorrow. Everybody, thank you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I appreciate it. Everybody have a great night.